Well, it looks like we may be eating sardines and crackers if things get any worse.
You say that like it's a bad thing. I actually have a lot of different sardines and crackers in the pantry and Louisiana hot sauce.
I was going to say you better have that hot
and
sauce.
The one that starts with a C that we always eat with the smoked tuna dip.
Cholula?
No.
Oh, it's a different one.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called. But no, we have numerous, and we have Tabasco. We have numerous different hot sauces to go with sardines.
Well, stock up now while you still can. Intense cold and unbelievably wet weather is taking a major impact on supply levels. Now, not necessarily hot sauce and sardines, but climate, I guess we can agree, is completely and totally out of control.
Yeah.
And out of whack.
Out of whack would be the right words.
Chemtrails, contrails, whatever you want to call it. What was the one that we had last year? It was CERN.
Oh, yeah. That thing, yeah.
Maybe we need more Teslas to fix the problem. Elon, crank them out. But I guess then we got to get to a point where people can actually afford them.
There's that.
But bad timing all around after discovering that about half, 50% of U.S. states have not provided PEBT benefits for the summer.
Why?
Good question. Now, we did go over that earlier today on the live stream, but it also means that 50% or roughly 50% of the states, probably more than 50% because one of them wasn't even a state, are not providing the PEBT benefits for the summer.
Is it because, nope, I was about to say, there's certain cities that are higher income or versus lower income, but I don't know of states where the entire state is a high income or low income state. So that doesn't even work. Now I'm going to ask the question that everybody else is going to ask. The states that aren't doing it, are they a specific color? Are they all the same color?
Good question.
Versus the ones that are?
We have to run it and see. But this is basically going to be leaving many families having to go without or find other ways to make ends meet during what appears to be the beginning or the beginnings of a recession. There's more than just one factor that's leading towards this. So the beginnings of a recession, from high prices, job loss, job cuts, terminations, bankruptcies, bank risks. I mean, what else?
There's a lot going on.
And there appears to be no rush to come to an agreement after the House works ever so slowly to deliver a plan to alleviate the problems that so many are preparing to face as a result of maxing out the current debt ceiling limit, which could have an impact on Social Security and Medicare benefits affecting millions of people. It's truly hard to even imagine really all that's happening, but the truth is facts don't lie. And the pain is setting in on many households, with the biggest question looming over everyone's head now being, you know what that question is?
Am I next?
Who will be next?
Oh.
When will we get hit? Good one on that. Yeah, fist bump. Nailed that like nailed that like a split hog.
I knew you were going to say something stupid. It's always more fun when I don't know what you're talking about or about to do, because I like to see if I'm ever right.
Well,
which also it sucks when I'm right.
Yes, I was going to say, like in this particular
it
situation,
sucks to be right.
But I tell you what, though, once we do, will there even be a way for any of us to prepare? Some of which have been preparing, some of which have been stocking up, as I suggest. Others, not so much. Not because they don't want to, because they can't. But then others maybe take the position and stance of everything's fine, everything's going to be okay. But then the question I have to ask is our government prepared to save us?
Don't save her. You don't want to be saved. That song hits me every time.
By riding around bumping it. Argentina's inflation just hit over 100%. And if we're going to be exact, 104% inflation for Argentina.
Well, if you want to be exact, we've had things here that hit 500% inflation. Sorry, chair. Things that only hit 7% inflation. Things that hit over 1,000% inflation, like, I don't know, insulin and things like that over the last couple of years.
And those numbers don't count towards the CPI. They magically exclude those.
The ones that are important and that affect
The ones
all
that people
of us
actually
that care
are
about
spending their money on
spending their money on, yeah.
every single day.
And that will affect whether you eat or not.
Discretionary spending and income is down, and people are now focusing on this, and retailers are seeing and witnessing this, and they are solely focused on buying what they need, not so much the stuff that they want. And if you're not including food and fuel and energy and medicine, like, really?
Yeah.
This is how we're going to calculate this to fudge the numbers?
Well, that way they can fudge the numbers, and that way it doesn't look so bad. If you leave out the parts that would make it look as friggin' awful as it is, it can't look bad, you know?
So this is straining people's wallets and stoking a cost of living crisis that has pushed up poverty. And many now facing a proverbial death sentence as they have zero capacity to save. The soaring prices have hammered salaries and spending power, pushed up poverty to near 40%, and dented the population or the popularity of the governing Peronist coalition as general elections near. Now, again, folks, we're talking about Argentina, but the question is, what happens when we're next?
Now, this is off topic because squirrel brain over here, but when you're talking about money and stuff, we are in Florida, so we have our electric bill is through FPL, Florida. I don't know what the P stands for, whatever. I don't know what FPL stands for. That's not important. We don't care. That's not important. But I'm guessing the F stands for Florida. The rest of it,
maybe the F doesn't even stand for Florida.
What if it's Florida Power Lines? Sure, FPL, Florida Power Lines. I have no idea. But what's interesting is I want to show you this, but I can't because I got my account number on it. But I logged into my FPL app because I got an email that says my bill is due. And I logged in, and instead of showing me my home screen where it tells me how much is due, when it's due, whatever else, the very first thing that comes up is this thing called FPL budget billing. And I was like, what is this? Budget billing gives you more control over your energy bills by evening out your energy costs over the year so you pay about the same amount each month. And I was like, how does this work? So I hit the learn more because I wanted to learn more. So I hit learn more. And what it does is if my actual bill is $141, it gives me a budget bill of $114 and it defers a balance of $26. So then the next month, if I'm over, it takes some of the deferred stuff, like it evens it out for over a year. But they say that you want to do this, if you sign up for it, you want to do it for at least a year, because at the end of the year, if you don't do it, then you owe the deferred part because it hasn't had time to even itself out.
Well, this is going to be similar to taxes. And in my opinion, I would rather pay
Which is exactly
my taxes than give them all of my money and hope to get it back in return.
So that was my thought too. So I when we're talking about saving money and trying to make sure you can afford things and the whatever else and going out and getting the things, that was just something that popped into my head because a lot of people I want to use the words fall for it and do the budget billing.
And then ironically, it just happened to magically work out.
And then you don't know what you should have paid, what it would have paid. Like it could have been a month where you really only should have paid $70, but they bill you that $114 that you're used to. And maybe you never know because they can fudge numbers on their end.
I think it's part of their liquidity concern as well, where if they can get more people paying in, potentially allowing them to have a cash surplus to cover those who don't pay their bills. But again, Argentina, the country, a major global grains exporter, is also grappling with one of its worst droughts in history. And is
grains.
What that means is that has hammered soy, corn, and wheat crops.
This is what I talked about on Saturday mornings. This last little line
Say it, what
here.
you got?
A significant disruption of grain production could impact the entire food chain since grain is not only consumed by humans but also used for animal feed. In addition, a significant disruption of grain and corn production could impact commodities trading and stocks.
So this is important because we're only talking about Argentina at this point in time, and they are grappling with one of its worst droughts in history that has hammered soy, corn and wheat crops, which then I would have to go and look and see how much do we import or historically would import from Argentina. And this is knocking out billions off the economy from lost exports and fanning domestic prices. So, Argentina has experienced heavy inflation, over 100%. Poverty levels are through the roof. People are unable to save money. Worst drought in history, hammering their soy, corn, and wheat crops, knocking out billions from the economy. And I'm asking, who's next?
California.
Because that is where things start to hit close to home. And if we're going to talk about Argentina, we're going to talk about the United States. It's not just going to be California.
No, but so you said record droughts in Argentina, and then, we've been talking for the last year about how the lakes in Nevada and California and all these places have been super low, and now California has a surplus of water from that, what's it called? What was that thing that went through? Dang it.
El Nino or something?
No, I don't remember the name of it.
Ryan Hall talked about it?
Probably. It happened a couple months ago, like February, March. It starts with an A, I think, and I can't remember what it's called. But it was something that brought water in from the ocean, basically. It wasn't a hurricane or anything like that. And I don't remember what it's called. But because of that, they then had an overflow of water, surplus of water. So they had all this flooding and things like that, which then hurt the crops as opposed to it being a drought that was hurting the crops. And I cannot remember what it was called. And it starts with an A. That's all I remember.
That's a good one because I don't. Atmospheric river?
Thank you. See, it started with an A. I was right.
Atmospheric river.
Atmospheric river. So that was what they said was going to happen for weeks on end in California. I think it was February and March, and that people were getting hammered by it, and people had to, they had to evacuate certain areas. I think that's even what hit San Diego or San Francisco, one of the two. And because of that, there was overabundance of water, and then there's a lot of flooding, and the soil was too wet for crops to grow and things like that. So we were going to see issues from that too.
Well, as I said, who's next? And more importantly, is our government prepared to save us? Because again, a recession and similar characteristics of Argentina, high inflation, poverty, inability for people to save, droughts, climate change, weather conditions, hammering their soy, corn, and wheat crops, knocking billions of dollars off the economy at quite possibly the worst time. And as I said, that's where things start to hit close to home. Because get this, beekeepers say that those weeks of missed pollination that the U.S. experienced this winter could have some major impacts.
There you go.
As U.S. goods imports from Argentina total 4.9 billion, but I would be curious as to how much of that is soy, corn, and wheat crops. But yes, the U.S. is facing a crisis of its own, as the beekeepers are saying that weeks of missed pollination that the U.S. experienced this winter could have some major impacts. And if the bee population does not get back on track soon, consumers and businesses could feel those impacts. And that would put us in a new world of hurt. Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know? You don't say why. You're supposed to. Do you know why?
No.
No, because you don't know, or no, because you weren't listening?
Because I didn't hear, because I was typing.
This is part of the team effort here. So if we're going to have these,
Yeah, I was looking up the Argentina thing
Which
that you
is?
said. Because I said, what is the main export from Argentina to the United States? And according to this, petroleum, gas, refined petroleum, and vaccines.
So maybe you guys can comment down below what the major potential problem could be if the bee pollination doesn't get back on track as a result of the weeks missed of pollination due to the intense weather and crazy climate that we experienced this winter.
Now, I think I remember somewhere somebody saying that if there are no bees, somehow it's going to affect our oxygen, even though I thought that was trees. But it'll affect food production for sure.
Here's a little bit of a hint. We talked about Argentina for a reason.
Okay, so the grains.
And their food supply. And bee pollination is critical to our overall survival and potential threats to supply shortages overall. And we are on the brink of what could be a $20 billion crop decline. Because bees are essential as they are responsible for pollinating nearly $20 billion worth of crops each year across just the United States. Produce such as berries and seeds of veggies like lettuce and broccoli require pollination from bees. And honeybees are certainly important for the Salinas Valley in that there's a lot of vegetable seed crops that require bees. I'm pretty sure that's in California. And that's just the start. That's just the beginning of, in my opinion, the 2023 food shortage crisis, as 2022 was the attack on Ukraine, fertilizer, grain, diesel fuel, all the farming inputs, the potential railroad workers union strikes. 2023, it's going to be the weather and the bees. And on that bombshell, I'll have to say that we can only keep our fingers crossed that this spring shows some signs of improvements, or else we will be in big trouble.
I don't really know where to go with that. I do know I'm terrified of bees, so I try to stay away from them. So it's not like you and I are going to start a beekeeping business, but I know that Morgan Freeman has a beekeeping business. Morgan Freeman bought a bunch of land just so he could have bees. Same thing, I believe, Natalie Portman. So celebrities with money are raising bees to help save the planet. Bet Leonardo DiCaprio has them too.